Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Thursday, March 11th, 2021. On today's episode of the show, we're going to be talking about the latest film and TV news. My name is Ben Pearson. I'm the senior writer at slashfilm.com, and I am joined on today's podcast by Slash Film weekend editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
And writer Hoai-Tran Bui.
Hey, everyone.
All right, guys. So I want to apologize to the listeners for yesterday. We did not have a podcast episode yesterday. I got sort of called away to attend a virtual tour of the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, which is opening this fall in LA. So I had to write a whole thing about that and watch this presentation, and it was a whole deal. So anyway, I think it's my fault that we didn't have an episode yesterday, but that article came out yesterday, and it's good, and you can read it, and I'll link to it in the show notes. If you want to learn more about that Academy Museum, I encourage you to go do that. So for today's episode, guys, I was really scouring, what everything we published over the past couple days, looking for stuff with good talking points for us. And there really isn't a lot of podcast worthy news out there. The only thing that I thought might be interesting for a quick discussion today is some comments from Jack Schaefer, who is the head writer / showrunner of Marvel Studios and Disney Plus's WandaVision, which came to an end this past weekend. So this is going to be a spoiler-filled conversation about the very end of WandaVision. So if you've not listened, this is your last chance to turn the podcast off, go watch that show, and then come back and tune into this. So at the risk of speaking for way too long, I'm going to read you guys some quotes from Jack Schaefer, and then I want to get your reactions to that. Actually, before we do that, HT, I want to just ask you, because I don't think I've had a chance to get your thoughts about this. I know Brad spoke with Peter about it on Friday's episode, but what did you think about the finale of WandaVision? Did it satisfy you? What did you make of it?
I was a little disappointed in it for reasons that I guess I haven't really talked about WandaVision a lot on the podcast, actually. But I always felt like the emotional beats should have been given more focus throughout the series versus the Marvel world building and lore building. And I feel like the finale attempted to wrap up too many threads at once, and in the end it felt almost like the emotional beats, which were so good throughout the season, were kind of given the shorthand, even more so the Marvel stuff. Like the sword stuff just kind of got just wrapped up very quickly. So it, in the end, I think tried to bite off a little bit more than it could chew and ended up being a little bit of a mess. But I did enjoy parts of it. I really enjoyed Wanda and seeing Wanda and Vision's arc wrap up. And even though I disliked the fact that it ended up in one big very Marvel looking fight in the air, that was probably my least favorite part of the episode. But I liked some of the moments. The emotional beats did land well enough for Wanda, even if she does get off a little bit scot-free in the end. And the Ship of Theseus scene with Vision really appealed to me.
Yeah, that was great stuff.
For reasons that if you follow me on Twitter, you'll probably see why. I liked a lot of moments of it, and that's, I think, kind of the extent of what I felt about WandaVision. I liked a lot of moments together. It didn't totally cohere as much as it could have, but for some of that, I felt like the missed potential was almost a little bit worse. But I still think that this was shown and overall was one of the most ambitious things and high concept things that Marvel has tackled.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very well said. I think I fully agree with every single thing you just said there. Okay, so I'm going to read you guys these quotes from Jack Schaefer. She did an interview with Cinema Blend recently, and they asked her about White Vision and the fate of that character. So just a very, very quick recap. That Ship of Theseus discussion that HT mentioned right after the Wanda's vision basically sort of breaks the White Vision's brain a little bit and sort of imbues him with all of the memories of the original Vision. White Vision says, "I am Vision," and then he immediately flies away. He bursts through this overhead glass panel and just disappears. So Jack Schaefer told Cinema Blend, "That's not the man that Wanda had children with. That's not the one who's been in the sitcom world with him. That's not the one she said goodbye to on a hill in Wakanda. That's the body and the data. So for the purposes of me and my job on the show, what I focus on, where he ends up, is an afterthought to the story proper." Vision's whole thing is identity. His whole thing is, I was a voice and then I was a body and now I'm a memory. there's a constant sort of self-analysis of what am I? So to me, it doesn't feel like a Marvel cheat of like, now there's another one out there. It actually feels very, very right. So I just wanted to sort of open this up to you guys. I wrote an article about this at slashfilm.com. I will link to that in the show notes, but I wanted to see what you guys think about specifically that statement. Do you guys buy her logic there, or do you sort of feel like the creation of this white vision and him being imbued with the original memories is kind of a Marvel cheat? Brad, let's start with you.
I think it ultimately depends on what is done with the White Vision as a character, because from Schaefer's perspective, I mean, she's right. Like she doesn't need to be concerned with the fate of White Vision or even where he goes after that, because his character arc isn't important necessarily to Wanda's character arc, because, like she says, that's not the Vision where this story unfolded and how she's been this spending this time. But it's, I think what maybe takes away from that perspective a little bit is having this other Vision out there who does have the memories of everything that happened leading up to his death in Infinity War. You would think that would still be a viable companion for Wanda in some fashion. And even if that's something that is maybe too weird for Wanda to embrace, because that Vision doesn't have the memory of all the things that happened in WandaVision, as a faux sitcom, it still leaves open the idea of that this character can come back around at any point, and it's still a pretty powerful synthezoid being. So maybe it's a character who comes back and after discovering himself becomes part of the new Avengers, if that's something that becomes a thing. But it does make me curious as to what the dynamic between a character like that and Scarlet Witch would be like. But I think that there's so much that will probably happen between now and whenever that would happen, that it's tough to, I think, even speculate or know for sure what can be done with White Vision and any other character in the MCU.
Yeah. HT, what did you think about White Vision's disappearance and Schaefer's comments here? Do you think this was warranted and not that big of a deal, or did it feel like it robbed the show WandaVision of a little bit of its emotional stakes by sort of creating within this world a sort of off ramp where the memories of Vision actually live on in a more tactile way?
I did feel like it was a thread that was dropped with surprising surprisingly little thought. And I know what Jack Schaefer is saying, that this is not the Vision that Wanda knows, the one that she had her children with. And I think there has been some great analysis of these two Visions, and how the Vision in Wanda's Hex is kind of the soul of Vision, the one that she remembers, her memory of him. But the one that the White Vision is just the body, the shell, and even though it has the memories, is not somewhat the character that she grew to love. And I do have to ask, how would you guys define exactly a Marvel cheat? This was the one thing in Jack Schaefer's statement that I wasn't sure exactly what to make of, because I'm not sure how exactly you would define a Marvel cheat. Is it something that is in service to the greater Marvel lore and is something that's just kind of leading to a next story, or is it just something that feels like it's a cheat in the way that Marvel doesn't quite land a lot of its stakes well, because it doesn't let a lot of its characters die?
I think that the referring to it as a Marvel cheat is this idea that characters die, have an emotional impact, and then end up coming back. And that I think that this isn't part of that, because the Vision that lives on isn't the Vision that Wanda truly had a connection with within this arc. So a lot of times other characters have died, but they've actually come back or still been around in some capacity. And I think and to me, that's what she's talking about here.
Yeah,
Okay, yes.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that then too.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like it does feel like a little bit of a cheat to me, because even in this altered form, this White Vision still does have the memories. And like there is a way now for, like Brad said, like theoretically Wanda could, meet back up with this version of Vision and have a heart to heart with them, and engage with this person in a way that might not be exactly the same as her previous relationship with the other Vision, but it could potentially get there, by it might be a little awkward at first or something. They might have to work out the kinks, but I feel like it does sort of, take away from some of the power that this show wants to have in its finale episode. Like that conversation between Wanda and her version, her recreation of Vision in the Hex, as as they're standing there in the house at the very end and the Hex is coming toward them and shrinking. It really, like, that is one of the most powerful moments of the show so far, and it got me really. I mean, I was sort of swept away in that right up until that moment where Vision basically says, like, I will, I've been this, I've been that, I guess I'll be something else sometime, and then like almost looks at the camera and winks, like, all right, see you later, audience, like I'll be back again someday. And it just sort of, I wish that the show would have had the courage of its convictions to just like fully close that book for Wanda, so that emotional moment would have landed a little bit harder with her. And I know it's probably not Jack Schaefer's fault. I'm sure she was given a directive like, you have to keep this, this open because we need the ability to use this white vision however we want, down the road. But
I feel like I think that closure is still there. Maybe not as powerful as it could have been if white vision didn't survive. But to me, it seems like even though white vision has had his memories restored, like they talk about how the data is there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that the emotions are maybe still there because White Vision was created as essentially a new version of Vision that didn't bring emotions to the table. So he's I think that he's more like, I guess you could say, Data, the Star Trek character, than anything now. And so even with that memory restored, I'm not sure that he has the ability to feel the same emotions that Vision ended up doing when he found that connection with Wanda.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess that could be true. Maybe I'm like projecting too much into like my read of what white vision could be, and I'm disappointed in something that hasn't happened yet. That very well could be.
I think it is a reset of sorts, and it could be potentially read as disappointing, but I don't think it takes away from the impact of that ending of Wanda and Vision seeing the hex close in around them and saying goodbye to the life that they knew, the life that they knew together. And in a sense, that relationship that Wanda had with Vision is completely gone. She's put that to bed, and it's not something that she can just pick up again with the new Vision. I think even with like whatever awkwardness that we can expect to see, it'll be a completely different Vision. I actually am interested to see how they'll explore ideas of personhood with this new white vision, especially because, like Brad said, he contains the memories and the data, but he's still not Vision. He's not quite there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he'll ever return to the Vision that Wanda remembers. So I do think there's a lot of potential for Marvel to explore, identity and personhood with white vision in a way that I think could be really interesting.
There's really no better character to explore those themes with, too, because I mean, he started as Jarvis, and like I think looking at the entirety of the MCU thus far, Vision has been the character that has evolved the most, across, like, I guess physically, like spiritually, if you want to call it that. Like that character has really sort of been defined by this idea of evolution in so many ways. So it definitely makes sense, and I certainly see where Jack Schaefer is coming from. It just kind of I don't know. I wanted to talk to you guys about it, and I think you guys have raised some really interesting points that have sort of taken me down off the ledge a little bit in terms of the harshness of my sort of gut check reaction to that finale. But I think it's just I'm guessing there are a lot of people that feel, as we do, sort of like across the spectrum of emotions here, and are trying to parse some of this stuff as we move further into the MCU and potentially see this white vision character pop up at some point again. All right, I think that's going to be it. Do you guys have any like final thoughts about the show? I'm sure we'll end up talking about it, here and there a little bit more as Schaefer and the director Matt Shackman continue to do some more interviews as sort of like a post-mortem of the series. I'm sure some more interesting information is going to trickle out over the next week or so. But just in case we don't get a chance to wrap up our thoughts any further, do you guys have any last things to say about WandaVision? HT, maybe you, since you haven't talked about it that much.
I do have one final thought. It doesn't have much to do with WandaVision, but with White Vision again, and something that is probably not based in any actual comic book lore, but it more based on his appearance and the potential for his character. The appearance of White Vision reminded me a little bit, and his countenance too reminded me a little bit of Silver Surfer. And I wondered, this is just me like spitballing. I wondered if with White Vision being sort of that blank slate that he is, and being so like alien in a way and not used to human interaction, I wonder if they'll do a sort of Silver Surfer type of approach with him in terms of that sort of almost big cosmic feeling and knowledge, but having to learn how to be human or something. I don't know. That's just like me wondering it while I was like, he kind of looks like Silver Surfer. I wonder if that's something that could happen.
That's a great fan theory. I love that idea because, Marvel has shown, or Marvel Studios rather, has shown that they will tweak, origin stories and things, whatever they want to basically, stuff from the comics. They're not always, slavishly like recreating things as they appear in the comics. So like the idea of White Vision becoming the MCU's version of Silver Surfer is a really cool idea. I have no idea if that's actually in the works, but I love that idea, HT. Brad, do you have any reaction to that or any final thoughts about WandaVision?
It's definitely an intriguing concept. I wonder if it strays a little too far from Silver Surfer and would maybe rub fans of that character the wrong way too.
Oh, it certainly would. Yeah. But that's kind of part of the reason why I kind of like it, just because it seems like a big swing. But
Silver Surfer fans, please don't hate me.
No, I definitely like it as an idea. It would be interesting to see if they would do something like that. But I feel like, even though they've definitely strayed from how things are in the comics, that feels a little too much of a departure for them to actually do it.
Any final thoughts about WandaVision, Brad?
I don't think so. I mean, we really dug into this episode in our spoiler discussion for the finale. So if you haven't listened to that yet, make sure, I'm not sure why you're listening to this episode, but make sure you listen to that.
HT, I mentioned, or you talked about the Ship of Theseus scene, and I told you in our Slack that I would recommend a book to you and tell you a little bit more about that. There's a book called S, the letter S, and I think there's a period in the title as well. And it was written in 2013 by this guy named Doug Dorst, and it was based on an idea by J.J. Abrams, actually. And the concept of this book is really interesting. And as somebody who reads a lot, HT, I think you'll like this. The book S is sort of presented as this book within a book, or a story within a book. So the design of the book, it's like a hardcover, and you pull it out, and it has a library book card sticker thing in the front where it shows, the people who've checked this out of a library. And there's a novel called Ship of Theseus, and the entire novel is fully written out as if it was this book that was published in, the 1949 or something like that. And then there are also in the margins handwritten notes going back and forth between two characters who have picked up this book and are reading it concurrently and are like trading off, like renting it from the library or checking it out from the library and putting it back and forth and writing notes to each other and communicating with each other. And there's all these like intertwined mysteries and everything. And it's very like J.J. Abrams in that regard. There's like so many allusions and literary references and like tons of things that these characters that you really get to know because of their handwriting and the way that they speak to each other in the margins. It's just this fascinating story because the Ship of Theseus book, this full novel, is like a well-written novel. It's not like some gag. It really reads like something from that period, and it touches on this Ship of Theseus idea, this thought experiment that WandaVision touched on in that finale episode. and it's really fascinating. So I loved this book. I read it a few years ago and was recommending it to people a long time ago. I haven't thought about it in a while, but that whole Ship of Theseus conversation really like brought back a flood of memories there. So I would recommend, if anybody in our listenership as well, was intrigued by that concept of the boat, and like, when is the boat the actual boat, even if it's being rebuilt with new parts and all that kind of stuff. Those ideas of identity that HT was talking about, I would recommend checking out this book called S. So HT, if you ever get a chance to read that, you'll have to let me know what you think about it.
Okay, yeah, sounds intriguing. Great sell, Ben.
Yes. All right. I think that's going to be it. That's going to bring us to the end of today's episode of Slash Film Daily. I think tomorrow we're going to have a water cooler. So don't hold me to that, but that's, I believe, what the loose plan is right now. So you can find more about this particular story that we mentioned, the single story that we mentioned on today's show, at slashfilm.com, and linked inside the show notes of this episode. Slash Film Daily is published every weekday, bringing the most exciting news from the world of movies and TV, as well as deeper dives into the great features you can find on the site. You can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps, and send your feedback, questions, comments, and concerns, and mailbag topics. Please send those in to us at peter@slashfilm.com. Make sure to leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention your email on the air. Don't forget to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends, spread the word. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.